After failing for the 99th time to conquer her heart, I finally divorced CEO Willow, the heroine who lived by the motto, marriage first, love later. I was completely done. I went straight to the system and requested to give up on conquering Emperor Willow, just asking to be sent home to heal my broken heart. But, of course, the system was merciless. It insisted I carefully review my failures and take one last chance to reattempt the conquest. I didn't care. I decided to slack off, speed through the process, and focus only on divorcing her as quickly as possible so I could go home. So this time, when the heroine went east, I went west. The male assistant falsely accused me, and I just admitted it. Her crush pretended to be sick, but I simply smiled. I was fully expecting the system to announce my failure and finally send me home, when out of nowhere, the heroine abandoned her destined male leads, eyes red, and threw herself at me, demanding me wildly. What the? Wait a minute. System, you promised me a melodramatic romance plot. Why is this turning into something inappropriate for children? In the company's conference room, CEO Willow slammed her palm on the meeting table, her face dark with anger. "George, why did you set Martin up?" she demanded. I looked at her, already radiating fury, yawned unconcerned, and continued scrolling through my phone. This scene, this line, I'd heard it 99 times. And today, it was finally going to be the 100th. Even if Willow didn't tire of it, I sure was about to lose it. "George, I'm asking you again, what's with this attitude?" Seeing me half asleep, Willow's face darkened instantly. Martin, Willow's assistant, always in a floral shirt, looking harmless but actually a pretentious, effeminate coquette, grinned provocatively at me. But I couldn't be bothered. Back when I first went through this scenario, I had been full of determination, arguing my case with Willow. By the second attempt, I even gathered evidence of Martin framing me. By the 50th time, I couldn't take it anymore and had stormed up to slap both Willow and Martin across the face. But the outcome was always the same. No matter what defense or evidence I presented, it was dismissed as false in her eyes. In the end, my affection points hit rock bottom. I got divorced, and my mission was marked as a failure. So for this 100th attempt, I gave up completely. This mission? Let someone else take it. I just wanted to finish the divorce process quickly, have the system mark my mission as failed, and return to my original world. Snapping out of my thoughts, I lazily nodded. All right, I've heard you. You're right. I did it. I was jealous of Martin being more capable than me. I envied him having more of your trust. So, yes, I set him up, tried to suppress him, trying to drive him out of the company. I'm a person of poor character and low abilities, a disgrace to the company, not worthy to be your husband. So I voluntarily resigned to atone for my crimes. Is that enough, CEO Willow? The room fell silent as soon as I finished. Martin, who had been preparing a tirade of fiery retorts, suddenly choked, his face turning red. Willow also looked stunned, her brows furrowed as though she hadn't expected me to admit it so straightforwardly. Just when I thought she might seize the opportunity to let me off the hook, Willow stared at me suspiciously. "George, what exactly are you trying to do? Are you unhappy with your salary, or is the work pressure too much?" I rolled my eyes. My day. In the past, you couldn't wait to throw me out to appease your pretentious coquette assistant. Now that I'm voluntarily resigning, why are you unhappy? Sigh, women and their suspicious natures. I shrugged and said innocently, "What am I trying to do? I violated company rules and caused a negative impact on the company. Voluntary resignation. Doesn't this process seem pretty normal?" With that, I pulled out the divorce agreement I had already prepared and slapped it on the table. "By the way, you might as well sign this too. Don't worry, I won't take a single cent. I just need your agreement." The moment Martin saw the divorce agreement, his eyes lit up, but he pretended to start his performance, speaking in a fake, pitying tone. "George, don't do this. CEO Willow was just angry for a moment. You don't have to take it to the level of divorce." Willow hesitated. "Maybe we can just forget about it." I don't think George did it on purpose. Hearing Martin's insincere, exaggerated words, I couldn't help but feel ecstatic. Yes, that's it. This is the vibe. Hurry up and provoke Willow. Get her so furious that she signs the agreement, and I can head home to shower and sleep. With great anticipation, I looked at Willow. Sure enough, her chest heaved with rage as she clutched the divorce agreement tightly in her hands. Seeing her face darken, almost about to explode, I grinned internally. It's working. I'm going to break the record this time, a divorce in under 10 minutes. The fastest failed mission in history, soon to be achieved by me. Just as I was already considering whether to play a couple of games or grab skews with my buddies when I got home, I suddenly heard a sharp, crisp sound. I looked in the direction of the noise, and my smile froze on my face. To my shock, Willow tore the divorce agreement on the table in half. For a moment, no one in the conference room even dared to breathe. I was frozen in place. What on earth is wrong with this woman? Oh no, my ticket home just slipped through my fingers. The next moment, Willow stood up and walked toward me, grabbing my collar and demanding, "You can't pull off something so flawless on your own. Spill it. Who's your accomplice?" I let out a confused, "Ah," to show my bewilderment. Her twisted logic left me speechless. Sister, what accomplice? The only accomplice I have is my desire to go home. I decided to escalate things and throw even more dirt on myself. No accomplice. Really, it's just me doing this. They say you never really know a person's heart, only their face. Well, I'm a terrible person. I'm arrogant, ruthless, a bully, and a criminal. I'm the #1 cancer of the company. Keeping me around is a disaster. Not only do I not deserve to stay in the company, I don't even deserve to be your husband. I gave my impassioned speech and almost started to believe it myself. But then there was a soft thud. Someone nearby couldn't hold in a laugh. The shoulders of several executives in the room started to shake with suppressed laughter. Willow's face grew darker. She slammed her hand on the table again and shouted, "Enough! I'm not here for your stand-up comedy. Tell me who else in the company was involved in this plot to frame Martin." Seeing that things weren't going well, Martin immediately started his fake good guy act again. "CEO Willow, maybe we can just let it go. I'm sure George—" "Shut up." Willow coldly interrupted him, her eyes flashing with determination. "This matter must be investigated thoroughly. Get me the surveillance footage from the warehouse that day." Martin's face turned pale. I felt my heart drop. Oh no, if they pull up the surveillance footage, all of Martin's little schemes will be exposed. If it's exposed, that would mean I was framed. If I'm framed, how am I supposed to leave with everything in order? No way. I quickly slammed Willow's laptop shut before Martin could say anything. "You can't check it, CEO Willow. I've confessed. There's physical and testimonial evidence. What do you need the surveillance for? Just fire me and divorce me, and this will be over." But the more I tried to stop her, the more suspicious Willow's gaze became. She probably thought that if I was fighting so hard to protect this so-called accomplice, then it wasn't just one person. It must be a massive toxic presence in the company. "You're trying to cover for your accomplice, huh? Well, I'm going to investigate this to the end." Without saying another word, she picked up the phone and called security. Soon, the large screen in the conference room displayed the surveillance footage from the warehouse that day. We saw Martin sneaking around, moving a batch of substandard materials into the warehouse, then expertly tearing off the seal I had signed and sticking it on a box of defective goods. The footage was crystal clear, even showing the leaf stuck between his teeth as he smirked wickedly. For a moment, everyone's gaze in the room was fixed on Martin's pale face. Martin immediately panicked, stumbling over his words in an attempt to explain. No, CEO Willow, please let me explain. There's been a misunderstanding. Someone's been pressuring me." "Shut up." Willow had lost any desire to listen, not even sparing him a glance. Looking at Martin, who was now at a loss, I couldn't help but sigh. This is just ridiculous. The current pretentious coquette assistant is so low-level. He looks presentable enough, but how is his IQ lower than a rotten potato dug up from a field? I frowned, feeling disillusioned. But Willow misunderstood. She quickly walked up to me, and for the first time there was an expression of apology on her face. "I'm sorry, George. This time, I was too hasty. As compensation, if you have any requests, I'll do my best to fulfill them." My eyes instantly lit up. I quickly raised my head, grabbed her wrist, and asked, "Really? Anything?" Willow was taken aback by my reaction, but nodded seriously. As long as I can do it. That's great. I immediately pulled out another divorce agreement along with a pen and shoved it into her hand. Then hurry up and sign this. I don't want anything else, just this. Willow was speechless. The apology on her face instantly froze, and she looked at me with a complicated expression. How do you still have more prepared? I casually opened my bag. It was stuffed full, at least a dozen identical divorce agreements inside. Willow's mouth twitched, probably thinking I was still throwing a tantrum and venting my frustrations this way. After a moment of silence, she pulled out a check from her bag, wrote down a series of numbers, and handed it to me. Here's a check as compensation. I glanced at it. There were 6 zeros on the back. In the past, I would have been over the moon. But now, is that money really what I need? What I need is freedom. I took the check and tore it to pieces in front of her. I told you, I don't want money. I want a divorce. As the check fell apart, Willow was completely stunned. She probably never imagined that I would be so obsessed with divorce. For a moment, I could see the guilt in her eyes deepen. The next moment, she turned to look at Martin, who had practically wet himself from fear. Do you want to handle him? She asked. My mind immediately started racing. Martin, though a fool, still had some use. If he stayed by my side, he could continue to stir up conflicts between me and Willow, helping me pave the way for my divorce. If he were fired, Willow wouldn't have anyone to sow discord. What if one day she suddenly had a moment of madness and decided to keep me around just because of my handsome face? What if she refused to let me go? Snapping back to reality, I cleared my throat and quickly spoke up. I think even though Martin did something wrong, he's still understandable. Besides, he's incredibly talented and an asset to the company. Firing him over such a small matter would be a loss to the company. In my opinion, not only should he not be fired, but he should be promoted, given a raise, and even offered shares. The more I spoke, the more I tried to lift Martin up to the heavens. But after hearing me, Willow gave me a look that said, You're still upset, aren't you? Without hesitation, she announced, Martin, you're fired. Go to HR now and complete your paperwork. CEO Willow, leave now. Seeing Willow's decisive expression, I was completely stunned. This was the main competitor for the male lead position. If she fired him, how was I supposed to divorce and leave this hellhole? Wait, CEO Willow, think it through. Martin is really useful to the company. Without him, how could we have brought in so many partnerships? I stepped in front of Willow, desperately trying to reason with her. She just stared at me blankly, as if she understood something. I suddenly had a bad feeling. And sure enough, after a brief silence, Willow suddenly patted my shoulder and said, George, you've been wronged like this, yet you can still be so magnanimous and rational, thinking about the company's well-being. To have an employee like you is a blessing for both me and the company. From today on, George's annual salary will be doubled, and I'll immediately transfer 5% of my shares to him. From now on, he will be the vice president of the company. As she said this, she kicked Martin, who was still lying on the floor. Go apologize to Vice President Wang. Thank him for his generosity. If it weren't for him, you'd already be blacklisted by me. I was completely stunned. Martin was equally confused. Had Willow mixed up her scripts? Wasn't this supposed to be her line to protect Martin? And Martin, at this point, must have wanted to swallow me whole right on the spot. But he dared not show his anger. He could only grind his teeth and apologize. Vice President Wang, I'm sorry. I could only helplessly sigh. It's okay. Little bro, keep up the good work. And next time be smarter. Strive to take me down and successfully rise to the top. Martin's face turned even greener. He probably thought I was mocking him and was so angry that his body started shaking. But I didn't bother trying to figure out his thoughts anymore. Since the divorce didn't happen, I might as well go home and sleep. By the time I got home, it was already completely dark. I walked into the bedroom, skillfully picked up my pillow and blanket, and prepared to crash on the couch for the night. After all, in this married but falling in love plot, even though Willow and I have been married for years, we haven't even kissed, let alone shared a bed. Just as I was about to walk out the door, a cold voice called out to me. Where are you going? Willow must have come back without me noticing. She was standing in the doorway, looking at me. I shook the pillow in my hand and said, "I'm going to the living room. I'll sleep on the couch tonight." Willow was silent for a moment before suddenly saying, "No, but I want to." "No, you don't." I frowned involuntarily. Wasn't she supposed to be the cold, Ice Queen CEO? Why was she suddenly acting like this? I was starting to get frustrated. What I want is up to me. With that, I yanked the blanket and started walking toward the living room. But Willow, not standing firmly, tripped over me, and her body fell right toward me. I instinctively reached out to catch her, but that caused me to stumble as well. In the end, I was on the bottom and she was on top, both of us falling to the ground. For a moment, our gazes met, and the atmosphere was a bit awkward. Buzz. It wasn't until Willow's phone, which had fallen to the ground, vibrated that the awkward silence was broken. It was a text message. I was quick to notice the name of the sender, Makoto. My eyes immediately lit up. Wasn't my great savior finally here? I suddenly sat up straight, only to slam my chin right into Willow's forehead. She gasped in pain. "What's got you so excited all of a sudden?" she asked. But when she saw the text message on my phone screen, "I'm back in the country. Can you come pick me up?" She froze in place. "George, She was about to explain, but I couldn't help but smile like a 300-pound child. It's fine. You go ahead. I'll take care of the house. Your crush is finally back. How can you not go see him?" Willow looked at me, clearly excited, but her expression grew cautious. She probably thought I was still angry about what happened earlier and was testing her this way, so she put her phone away. "George, I've already cut ties with him. Considering his health, I'll send a driver to pick him up." "That won't do," I interrupted. "He's come all the way back, and you're just sending a driver? How hurtful is that?" Without giving her a chance to protest, I grabbed the car key from the table, took her hand, and dragged her toward the garage. Let's go. It's so cold, and if you don't hurry, your man's going to turn into a popsicle." Willow was being dragged behind me, her eyes full of complexity. No one knew what she was thinking. By the time we got to the airport, I spotted a handsome guy with a chiseled jaw standing near the exit, looking around. It was none other than one of Willow's official suitors, the heartthrob Makoto. The moment Makoto saw Willow, he smiled warmly. "Willow, you really came after all," but as soon as he saw me standing beside her, his smile froze. "Huh? Why is he suddenly speechless?" As both Willow and Makoto shot me awkward looks, I quickly took 2 steps back. Sorry. Just pretend I'm not here. Go ahead, hug, kiss, and get back together already. Don't waste any more time." Willow's gaze toward me became even more complicated. After a moment of silence, she stepped back with me and coldly looked at Makoto. "You should know, when my parents were away and the company was leaderless, you left without a word. That's when it ended between us." Makoto's face stiffened at her words, and I quickly added, "Don't be so quick to jump to conclusions. Maybe there's something you don't know. Maybe he got cancer or something, and is trying to protect you from being dragged down with him." Just as I finished, Makoto shot me a strange glance, then sighed deeply. "Willow, don't misunderstand. I came back this time not to interfere with your life, but just to get treatment." Willow froze for a moment. "You're sick?" Makoto nodded. "It's a rare heart condition. The doctor says I don't have much time left, and they advised me to come back and receive conservative treatment." He paused and added, "Unless I can find someone with the same rare blood type as mine to donate a heart. But honestly, I've lost hope." With that, he put on a tragic smile, looking as though he had already resigned himself to his fate. Willow seemed to have thought of something, and her gaze shot to me. "Panda blood. That's—" I suddenly woke up from my drowsiness. From the experience of the previous 99 attempts, I knew what was coming next. Willow would ask me to donate my heart, and in return, she'd give me an artificial one and fulfill all my wishes. Of course, I had refused before, even trying to expose Makoto's fake illness. But the result was always the same. Willow would have someone knock me out, tie me to the operating table, and, with a push of an anesthetic, rip out my heart. At this point, I figured whether I stick my neck out or pull it back, It's going to end the same way. It would be better to agree to the transplant, get it over with, and then divorce so I could go home and sleep. Snapping back to reality, I immediately replied, I'm willing. Willow was stunned. I haven't even said what it is yet. What if it's something that could cause you a lot of harm? A flash of reluctance crossed her eyes. I followed suit and gazed at her with deep affection. It's okay. As long as it's for you, even if it means death, I'm willing. Willow was completely frozen. She looked at me with an expression as if she were seeing me for the first time. After a moment of silence, she asked hoarsely, What do you want as compensation? I immediately pulled out my precious divorce agreement again. Divorce. That's my only wish. Please grant it. I handed her the pen, my eyes full of longing to go home. But Willow remained silent again. She looked at the agreement in my hands, hesitating to take the pen. After a long pause, she shook her head. I'll think about this carefully. Makoto's eyes flashed with displeasure, but he still put on an act of being magnanimous. Willow's right. You can't force something like this. Besides, Mr. Wang, you're still Willow's husband. How could I take her from you? He turned to Willow with an invitation. It's been a while since we saw each other. How about we have dinner tomorrow together? Willow subconsciously looked at me. I was puzzled. Why does she keep looking at me? I'm not your father. But Willow took a deep breath, as if she had made up her mind. I'm sorry, Before she could finish, I quickly covered her mouth and shouted, She agrees. Tomorrow noon, right? She's agreed. We'll definitely be there. I cheerfully agreed on her behalf. Makoto froze for a second, then smiled nonchalantly. But as he was leaving, he whispered a warning in a tone only the two of us could hear. George, don't flaunt your affection in front of me. You can't beat me. The next day, I dragged an unwilling Willow to the high-end restaurant Makoto had reserved. This place was so upscale that even the doorknobs were made of gold. Makoto, however, seemed completely at ease and gestured to the waiter to begin serving. French escargot, top-quality caviar, Australian lobster. It was all fine dining. During the meal, Makoto purposely flaunted his knowledge of Willow, mentioning everything from a dislike of cilantro to how she only puts one sugar cube in her coffee. I couldn't care less, stuffing my face with food as if I hadn't eaten in days. Anyway, I was going to be sent away soon, so why not eat to my heart's content? Around us, the other diners were dressed elegantly and acted refined, looking at me as though I had just stepped off a farm. I overheard whispers. That guy doesn't even know how to use a knife and fork. It's so funny. Yeah, look at the way he's eating the lobster. It's like he hasn't eaten in 3 days. Their giggles reached my ears. Makoto smirked disdainfully, wiped his mouth with a napkin, and arrogantly said, George, when you're out in public, you should really learn some table manners. Otherwise, you'll just embarrass Willow. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a loud crash. Willow, usually so composed, had actually flipped the table. Mind your words. George is my husband now. I was so stunned that the half-eaten piece of lobster in my mouth dropped straight onto the floor. This script was getting way too wild, wasn't it? In the previous 99 attempts, Willow had never, ever flipped a table. She was always so protective of Makoto, treating him like he was made of glass, terrified that even a harsh breeze might hurt him. And now, she was glaring at him like he'd stolen her parking spot. How had her entire personality collapsed in this version? I quickly wiped my mouth and stood up, trying to smooth things over. It's fine. Mr. Ito was just joking. I'm a bit crude, not the most refined, I said with an awkward smile, doing my best to diffuse attention. CEO Willow, why don't you continue your meal with Mr. Ito? I'm feeling a bit unwell, so I'll head out first. Don't let me disturb your elegant dining. I even shot Makoto a look that said, For the love of everything holy, stop talking before she flips me too. But just as I took a step forward, Willow suddenly grabbed my wrist. Wait! I'm full, she said coldly, pulling me toward the door. As we passed Makoto, she stopped for a moment and said in a calm, businesslike tone, As for your condition, I'll have someone else contact you and provide the best treatment options. But Makoto, if there's nothing else, we won't be in touch again. Makoto's face went completely pale. He forgot his lines entirely, but his eyes, filled with resentment, stayed locked on me, like I'd just dug up his family's ancestral grave. I felt wronged. Wasn't it you couldn't keep your mouth shut and had to provoke this great Buddha? Sigh. I just can't handle this anymore. Just as Willow was about to drag me out of the restaurant, Makoto panicked and switched tactics on the spot, diving straight into his classic tragic hero act. Willow, don't misunderstand. I don't mean anything by it, he said in a trembling voice. I'm already prepared to die. I just have one last request before I leave this world. Willow's steps paused instinctively. Do you remember the promise we made when we were children? I immediately perked up. I knew this plot by heart. When they were kids, they'd promised each other that they'd hold the grandest wedding in the world someday. Next, Willow would feel guilty and agree to fulfill his final wish. And as her nominal husband, that would mean I could gracefully bow out. It's set. Everything's set. I eagerly looked at Willow, waiting for her to say it. Come on, say it. I remember. But after a moment of silence, Willow shook her head. I don't remember. I froze. Makoto froze. Wait, what? Why is she not following the script? Before Makoto could recover, I quickly stepped forward and cut him off. I remember. You two promised to hold a grand wedding when you grew up, right? Makoto blinked, confused. How do you know that? I couldn't be bothered to explain, and instead looked at Willow seriously. Divorce. Let's make it happen as a fulfillment of his last wish. I pulled out my precious divorce agreement, again, and handed it to her. Willow frowned. George, it's all in the past with him. Not true. I shot back instantly, recalling every failed attempt before this one. If it's really in the past, then why is there still a bookmark made from mulberry leaves that he gave you stuck in the front of the Little Prince in your study? If it's really in the past, then why is his birthday still the password for your office computer? Willow stared at me, completely shocked. You knew? Makoto was just as stunned. After all, those were the exact lines he'd used in previous timelines to stop Willow from leaving him. But he quickly recovered, putting on a show of reluctant generosity. Willow, forget it. Don't make things difficult for George. No. I cut him off decisively. It has to happen. Not only must we divorce, but we must also hold a grand wedding. We need to let the whole world know, so they'll remember the great love that transcends life and death. I spoke with such passion that even I was starting to get moved by my own words. Willow just stared at me, her expression a complicated mix of confusion and disbelief. After a long silence, she slowly raised a hand. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. Finally, I thought, I can go home and end this cursed mission. But before her hand could reach the paper, a sudden buzz broke through the air. Willow's phone started vibrating urgently. In the end, Willow didn't sign the divorce agreement. Instead, she answered the call. The next moment, a panicked voice came through the receiver. CEO Willow. Something's wrong. Assistant Martin is trying to jump off the company rooftop. My mind went blank, and I nearly fainted on the spot. Martin. How was this persistent ghost of a man interfering with my divorce plans again? Willow's face changed instantly, and she quickly apologized to Makoto before rushing out. Makoto, however, snorted coldly behind me. Sage, you got away this time. I didn't bother responding. I rushed to follow Willow to the company. When we arrived downstairs, the area around the building was already crowded with people. On the rooftop, Martin had half of his body hanging over the edge, shouting, "Don't come any closer. If you do, I'll jump." Willow's face turned pale as she held a megaphone and tried to reason with him. "Martin, calm down, and we'll talk this through." The negotiation experts nearby also desperately tried to talk him down, but Martin was deaf to their pleas. With a runny nose and tears streaming down his face, he began his performance. "CEO Willow, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the company. I love you so much. I was jealous of George. That's why I did such foolish things. I can't forgive myself. I can only atone with my life." When I heard that, my eyes lit up. This is perfect. I quickly squeezed my way to Willow's side and shouted loudly, "Martin, I understand your feelings. To let you and CEO Willow be together, I'm willing to step aside. I'll divorce Willow right now and make way for you." Martin paused for a moment, looking at me in disbelief. I quickly shook the divorce agreement in my hand and urged Willow, "Hurry up and sign. Lives at stake here. A living, breathing person is hanging on the edge." I nearly recited every guilt-tripping line Willow had used on me in the previous 99 attempts whenever Martin had tried to jump. Then I forcibly placed the pen in her hand. But this time, Willow hesitated, looking at me with a trace of reluctance in her eyes. "But this wouldn't be fair to you. It's fine. As long as you and the company are safe, I don't care about anything else." Willow seemed to sense my determination. After a brief moment of hesitation, she finally grabbed the pen. Martin's eyes gleamed with triumph. I thought it was finally a done deal. But the next moment, Willow threw the pen off the rooftop, grabbed a megaphone, and coldly said, "I don't care anymore. If you want to jump, go ahead." Martin was stunned. So was I. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. In the typical melodrama, wouldn't the female lead, in an attempt to save a pretentious coquette assistant, tearfully agree to all his demands? Why was she just letting him die? Martin didn't expect Willow to do this either. He had been pretending this whole time, and now he was truly stuck. He tried to continue his sob story, but his foot slipped, and he actually fell. Luckily, he had the protagonist's halo, and he landed right on the rescue air cushion below. I have to admit, these main characters are really hard to kill. But he must have still been injured because he was immediately rushed to the hospital by ambulance. He wouldn't be causing any more trouble for a while. I watched the ambulance drive away, speechless. Truly, he's more trouble than his worth. As I snapped out of my thoughts, I noticed Willow had somehow grabbed my hand, her gaze fixed on me. "George, from now on, no matter what happens, don't ever casually mention divorce again." I was a bit taken aback. In the 99 previous attempts, this was the first time I had ever seen Willow like this. Could it be that she really was falling for me? But the thought was quickly dismissed. She was probably just emotionally rattled from everything that had happened today, and her brain had short-circuited for a moment. If she was this easy to manipulate, I wouldn't have failed 99 times already. Sure enough, after we got back to the office, she just sat quietly on the couch, her expression distant. To my surprise, Makoto actually came to find us. He probably thought the timing was right and decided to seize the opportunity. "Willow, are you okay? As for the wedding arrangements, I think we're not having it." Willow suddenly snapped, glaring at him. Makoto froze for a moment, then shot a resentful look at me. It was clear he had already concluded that I was behind this. But then, as if he'd thought of something, his expression shifted to one of sadness. "I'm sorry, Willow. I didn't mean to disturb you. I'll leave now. I wish you both happiness." With that, he turned to leave. I quickly stepped forward and blocked his way. "Mr. Ito, don't leave. We can talk about this." Makoto Ito smirked at me, his lips curling into a cold, confident smile. The next second, his legs gave way. He clutched his chest, stumbling toward me with a pained groan. Willow's face turned pale, and she hurried over to support him. Makoto, only I remained calm, even suppressing the urge to laugh. After so many failed attempts, I had memorized every direction and angle in which he would fall. Next, he would pretend that it wasn't me who pushed him, trying to blame me for the incident. Willow, of course, would view me as a jealous murderer, and that's how we'd end up divorcing. Sure enough, as Makoto collapsed on the floor, he spoke first. "Willow, don't blame George. It wasn't him who pushed me. I just slipped." Before he could finish, I eagerly interrupted. "No, it was me. I pushed him. If you don't believe me, you can check the surveillance right now." This time, I was confident. In past attempts, I had tried using the surveillance footage to clear my name, only to discover that Makoto had cleverly positioned the camera so that the angle distorted everything. No matter how you looked at it, it always seemed like I had acted first. That evidence had helped him convince Willow to divorce me. But as soon as I admitted it aloud, Makoto froze, clearly not expecting me to be so upfront. Willow furrowed her brows, hesitating for a moment, before coldly asking, "Why did you push him? Didn't you know he has a heart condition?" I flashed a grin. "Yeah, I know. I just wanted to kill him. He was trying to steal my wife." Willow's eyes instantly sharpened as she glared at me. But deep down, I was thrilled. Makoto was her idol, a piece of her heart she couldn't let go of. I wanted to kill him, and she wasn't going to fight me on it. After a minute of silence, Willow sighed helplessly. "Forget it. Nothing serious happened. Don't do this again." Makoto, still lying on the ground, was stunned. I was just as confused. In the previous 9 to 9 attempts, if I had even scratched him a little, Willow would have been out for blood, apologizing to him as if I'd committed some grave crime. Now, I was about to kill him, and she just let it slide. Makoto immediately shot me a venomous glare, then dramatically coughed, a trickle of blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. The fake doctor he had arranged burst in. "Not good. Mr. Ito is having a heart attack. Immediate rescue is required." I quickly sprang into action and blocked the office door. No one leaves until the divorce agreement is signed. Willow looked at me, her face filled with pain and indecision. "George, do you really have to force me to choose like this?" I was dumbfounded. What's there to hesitate about? In all the previous attempts, hadn't she always picked Makoto in a second? I nodded firmly. "Yes, you have to choose." Willow fell silent again. I was getting desperate. Makoto, still on the floor, was getting desperate too. After all, he was pretending, and if he stayed down too long without dying, his little act would be exposed. Just as I thought this might fail again, Willow finally relented and signed the divorce agreement, her voice hoarse as she said, "Is this enough?" I nodded vigorously, my heart racing with excitement. Soon, the fake doctor hauled off the dying Makoto. Before they left, he threw me a mocking grin through the ambulance window. I smirked back. I plopped down on the office couch, feeling satisfied, waiting for the system to notify me of my failed mission and send me back home. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes passed, but there was still no notification from the system. I looked up in confusion, only to meet Willow's red-rimmed eyes. At some point, she had moved right in front of me, staring intently as tears streamed down her face like a broken faucet. "Why, George, why do you keep pushing me away? Do you hate me so much? Do you resent me this much?" Before I could respond, she suddenly leaned down, pinned me to the couch, and kissed me deeply. Before I could even gather my thoughts, a strong scent of jasmine wafted into my nose. I froze in place, my brain short-circuiting. What is happening? This isn't how the plot was supposed to go. This was supposed to be a dramatic, heart-wrenching, life-or-death chase for love, an epic tale of suffering and longing. So how did it suddenly veer off into this? Well, something completely different. I snapped back to reality, pushing Willow's shoulder forcefully, trying to shove her away. Wait! I was gasping for air, feeling as if my lips no longer belonged to me. They were numb and burning. Willow stumbled back a step, but her bloodshot eyes never left mine. Her gaze was no longer cold and distant like before. Instead, it was filled with a madness I had never seen before. She stared at me, then began undoing her hair tie. "I'm not waiting anymore." The words barely left her lips when she lunged at me again. This time, I was ready. I tried to dodge to the side, but the office, designed to showcase the CEO style, was filled with useless art pieces and plants, leaving little space to escape. In the end, Willow pinned me down on the couch. I swallowed hard and quickly asked, "Willow, have you lost your mind?" But she just looked at me intently, her expression unusually serious. "Yeah, I've lost my mind." I was speechless. Great. Now I had no idea what to do. I couldn't fight her off. I couldn't run away. And reasoning, what was there to reason with someone who admitted they had gone mad? I decided to give up the struggle. Fine. The wind is bleak, the water's cold, and a hero who sets off may never return. Let's just pretend I was bitten by a passing dog. I don't know how much time passed, but Willow finally regained her usual cold demeanor, expertly rettying her hair. Glancing out the window, I realized the sun was rising. Willow and I sat side by side on the couch, neither of us speaking. The atmosphere was so awkward, you could almost feel it in the air, thick enough to carve out a 3-bedroom apartment. I subtly turned my head, stealing a glance at the woman beside me. Her dampened face pressed against the back of the couch had lost some of the ISIS CEO's sharpness, replaced with an indescribable, almost sultry allure. But at the moment, I wasn't in the mood to appreciate that. My mind was consumed with one thought: why hasn't the damn system made any move? Based on my past experiences, Willow had already signed the divorce agreement. The system should have long ago declared my mission failed and sent me back to the real world. So why was it taking so long this time? Just as I was about to lose my patience, the long-awaited system notification finally sounded in my mind. But the system's voice sounded a little guilty. I immediately growled in my mind. Finally decided to show up. Huh? Had your fun watching the drama? Hurry up and send me back home. Don't you care about meeting your KPIs? Ahem. Host, please calm down. The system's voice stammered. It's like this. According to Clause 8, Section 12 of the Time Travel Execution Management Regulation. I interrupted it impatiently. The system's voice immediately grew weaker. Well, you haven't officially gotten your divorce certificate. Although you've signed the agreement, from a legal perspective, you're still married. Our system must follow the law. After all, I almost spat out an old mouthful of blood after hearing that. What the hell? I've been fighting for my life to get home, and here you are, with your thick brows and big eyes, exploiting legal loopholes behind my back? Deep breath. Calm down. George, calm down. It's just a matter of getting a divorce certificate. How big of a deal could it be? I suddenly sat up straight on the couch, startling Willow beside me. She looked at me, confused. Ignoring her, I grabbed the divorce agreement she had just signed and placed it solemnly in front of her. Let's go. We're going to the Civil Affairs Bureau right now to get the divorce certificate. As I spoke, I reached for my phone. Willow stared at me, puzzled by my urgency. She slowly sat up, bit her lip, and after a long pause, suddenly grabbed the divorce agreement out of my hands and threw it into the shredder. Then she started playing dumb. What divorce agreement? I don't remember. I stared at the shredder buzzing away and looked at her as if she were an alien. What are you doing? Willow, caught off guard by my gaze, seemed a little nervous. Her eyes darted around, and she couldn't meet mine. I was just too emotional earlier. My mind went blank, and I don't remember anything. I almost laughed in disbelief. Really? I pointed at her, my finger trembling with frustration. Willow, CEO Liu, you're the CEO of a billion-dollar listed company, and you're playing games with me. When you signed it earlier, it was a magnificent signature. Now you've torn it up and tell me you don't remember? Do you think George, am that stupid? Willow, shrinking from my anger, turned her head and pretended nothing had happened. I was furious. This woman must be going through some kind of crisis. Has she completely lost her mind? Just as I was about to continue confronting her, showing her what a real rogue looked like. Buzz, buzz, her phone, which had been thrown on the couch, suddenly started vibrating. Willow, as if grasping at a lifeline, hurriedly picked up the phone. Hello, Dr. Lee. I couldn't hear what was said on the other end of the line, but Willow's face instantly turned serious again. Okay, I understand. Willow placed the phone down beside her, looking at me with a complex expression. It was the hospital calling. The doctor said Makoto had woken up and his condition was stable for now. He wanted her to come over. As soon as I heard that, my eyes lit up. It was like someone had handed me a pillow when I was already falling asleep. Makoto, despite not being the sharpest tool in the shed, had an uncanny ability to show up exactly when I was about to divorce Willow. He was basically my divorce catalyst, a smooth ride on my way back home. But Willow, looking at me, seemed to hesitate ever so slightly. She seemed reluctant to go. That couldn't happen. I snatched her phone from her hand and shouted into it with passion. Got it. We'll be there right away. Please make sure Mr. Ito remains calm and doesn't get too agitated. CEO Willow is on her way now. I immediately hung up the phone, grabbed Willow's hand, and started pulling her toward the door. Let's go. Let's go. What are you waiting for? Time to save a life. Willow, still confused, was being dragged along. Why are you suddenly so concerned about Makoto's condition? I couldn't be bothered to explain, and made up a random excuse. I'm just a good person. What's wrong with that? Enough talking. Hurry up and get in the car. I'm about to floor it. 15 minutes later, I quickly took Willow to the hospital. George, you go ahead. I'll grab a fruit basket and take care of the hospital fees. I didn't think much of it and nodded, heading straight into the VIP room where Makoto was staying. As soon as I walked in, I saw Makoto reclining in the bed, intently using his phone to send tips to a female streamer, looking remarkably well and energetic, definitely not like someone suffering from a heart condition. When he saw me, he froze for a moment before sneering coldly. What's this? Came alone? Where's Willow? Has she finally seen through your true nature and decided to ditch you? George, I've always told you, compared to me, you're nothing in Willow's eyes. You're nothing more than my replacement, really. Hearing his mocking words, I felt my blood pressure rising. Bro, my dear brother, can you keep it down a bit? What if Willow hears you when she comes back from paying the fees? The louder you scream now, the worse it's going to get later. Makoto, shut up. I whispered urgently, signaling wildly with my eyes. But Makoto thought I was just embarrassed, so he smiled even more smugly. He sat up straight in bed and sneered. What? Is the truth too harsh for you to handle? Tough luck. Willow's entire youth has been devoted to me. She's my loyal dog, and you're just a poor guy stepping in as a replacement. TSK, you look like me, so you're probably just a stand-in. You should know your place and step away from Willow, or... He was getting carried away with his taunts. Creak. The door to the room suddenly creaked open. Willow stood in the doorway, her face icy, her expression dark. What are you going to do about it? She asked, her tone cold and sharp. As soon as Willow spoke, the smug expression on Makoto's face froze. Willow, let me explain. It's not what you think. I can explain. But Willow walked to the bedside and looked down at him, her eyes cold with disappointment, no trace of affection left. Makoto, I never imagined you were this kind of person. If I had known you were like this, I wouldn't have saved you yesterday. I stood off to the side, watching the tense atmosphere between Willow and Makoto, raising an eyebrow in surprise. Wait a second. This isn't right. Why is Willow still defending me? This is the worst lead I've ever had. We hadn't even won yet, and we were already celebrating prematurely. Ruined. Completely ruined. I just can't handle this. Really can't. Makoto, completely panicked now, his face turning from pale to green, quickly grabbed Willow's clothing and began his classic woe-is-me routine. Willow, I almost died yesterday, so I wasn't thinking straight. I said those things in a moment of impulse. Please don't be angry with me, okay? Now all I want is to spend my last time with you, as a friend. Tears nearly spilled from his eyes as he spoke. At the mention of death, Willow's expression softened just slightly. She pulled her clothes from his grip, stepped back, and distanced herself from him. I understand. I'll arrange for the best doctors and the best medications. Focus on your treatment. But from now on, don't contact me again, and don't contact him either. Makoto was about to say something else, but his gaze inadvertently swept over Willow's neck. The next second, his eyes widened in shock, and his voice trembled as he pointed. Willow, what's on your neck? Willow froze for a moment, instinctively reaching up to touch her neck. There, clearly visible, was a mark from yesterday, a reminder of the intense, rough moments between me and the system. Willow's face turned bright red in an instant, from her cheeks all the way to her ears. She was embarrassed and angry, glaring at me before whispering, We'll talk about this when we get home. With that, she dashed out of the room like a startled rabbit, covering her neck, not looking back. Sorry, I need to use the restroom. The hospital room was now left with only me and a furious Makoto. His eyes were filled with venom, practically burning holes through me. He looked like he wanted to skin me alive. George, he gritted his teeth and spat out, What did you two do before coming to the hospital yesterday? I remembered that absurd scene in the office and quickly decided to turn a blind eye. It's nothing. I raised my hands, showing an innocent expression. We were just sharing experiences on how to train fighting dogs. Makoto clearly didn't believe me. He thought I was boasting on purpose, trying to deceive him. He snorted, and suddenly, as if remembering something, he said with disdain, "George, don't get too happy so soon. Right now, she's only with you because she hasn't grown tired of you yet. I'm the patient now, the one Willow can't get out of her mind." He said this while glancing at the steaming soup on the nightstand, pointing at it with his eyes. "Tell me, if Willow comes back and finds me..." Before he could finish, I interrupted, taking the word from his mouth. "You'll find me pouring hot soup on you, which will make you think I did it out of jealousy to take revenge, right?" Makoto fell silent for a moment, then smiled proudly. "Ha! At least you have some brains." I was speechless inside. I had lived through this scene many times, and I already knew exactly what would happen next, even with my eyes closed. He would spill the soup himself, then pretend to be defending my cause. But in reality, he would accuse me of doing it, taking advantage of Willow's innocent heart to get me kicked out of the room. But I couldn't wait any longer. I couldn't let this fool act on his own. That would only be ineffective. So, under Makoto's surprised gaze, I approached and took the steaming soup. What are you going to do?" Makoto swallowed, looking at me with some fear. I smiled at him, showing my teeth. "I'll help you. No need to thank me." With that, I flicked my wrist, and the hot soup spilled suddenly onto his legs. "Ow!" A piercing scream echoed throughout the VIP room. Makoto jumped out of the bed as if he no longer had any heart problems. Where was a man who was about to die of a heart attack? Willow, who was just returning from a bathroom, witnessed this horrific scene. She was stunned and, without thinking, screamed at me, "George, what's going on here?" I threw the empty bowl on the floor, wiped my hands, and turned to face her, meeting her surprised gaze. "It's nothing. I just spilled the soup on Makoto because my hand trembled." "Why?" she asked, eyes narrowing. I smiled coldly, looking directly into her eyes, and said word by word, "Because I envy him. I can't stand seeing you be so nice to him. It annoys me. Today, either he leaves here, or we go to the civil registry to ask for a divorce. You choose." Makoto, who was still screaming from the burn, stopped complaining upon hearing this. Although he hated me deeply, he couldn't help but suppress his anger and continue playing the role of the good and innocent man. He covered his burned thigh with a pained expression and said to Willow, "Willow, don't put me in that position. Let me go. I'm a man condemned to die. I can't allow my presence to affect your marriage with Mr. Wang any further." His words were full of false dignity and compassion. Everything had finally returned to its course. It was time for Willow to go with me to the civil registry. On the side, Makoto smiled at me with satisfaction, sure that Willow would stop me, scold my bad actions, and take his side, separating from me. However, Willow only looked at me in silence for a few seconds, then nodded. "All right, I'll do as you wish." Instantly, she turned and said to the nurse who had arrived after hearing the commotion, "Please proceed with Mr. Ito's transfer paperwork right now." As soon as she finished speaking, Makoto was completely stunned. I was also shocked. Makoto wanted to say something more, but Willow directly interrupted him, her tone making it clear she would not accept any argument. "Leave now." "If not," she paused for a moment, looked at me, and with a gaze that surprisingly held a hint of tenderness, she added, "My husband will get jealous." Hearing the word husband, I choked on my own saliva and coughed several times. Husband. It was the first time Willow had called me that after all the times we had spent together in the game. In fact, according to the original plot, Willow and I didn't have any real romantic relationship. Although we had married quickly, it all started because I once saved her from an accident, and she happened to need a husband to create a public image for her company in the market of relationships and products for mothers and children. So by coincidence, we ended up getting married. In our daily life, we simply called each other by our names. We had never even addressed each other as husband and wife in public. That's why, even though we were already married, the system still required me to conquer the protagonist. But I didn't expect Willow to now, for the first time, recognize me as her husband. She even preferred to move her crush out of my sight rather than go sign a divorce with me. Could it be that she really has fallen in love with me? But the system hadn't given me any notification that the conquest had been successful. I sighed, thinking how much the plot had deviated, and decided to let her take the reins. Meanwhile, Makoto was completely furious. He pointed at my lips, trembling, but couldn't say a single word. Finally, all he could do was mouth with rage, "Wait! I won't let you go so easily." Soon after, with the nurse's help, he reluctantly left the room. When he left, only Willow and I remained in the room. Willow sighed softly, walked over to me, and, lifting her head, asked, "Well, are you satisfied now?" Her voice, though full of tenderness, also carried a hint of resignation. I replied honestly, "I'm not satisfied. If we could go right now to register the divorce, that would be the best." Upon hearing my words, Willow didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled with a mixture of helplessness, took out a handkerchief, and started to wipe the hot soup stains that had splashed on my sleeve. "George, I admit that I didn't do things right before. I didn't have the patience to try to understand your feelings. I was impulsive, harsh, and did many things that hurt you. But from now on, I'll correct my mistakes with actions." She raised her gaze and looked at me seriously, pronouncing each word clearly. "So please don't say any more impulsive things. I'm not going to divorce you." In that moment, looking into her eyes, which were nearly overflowing with tenderness, I was dazed. My heart skipped a beat, but soon I snapped out of it. This kind of smooth start wasn't anything new. It had happened in the previous 9 to 9 attempts. In fact, there were a few times when Willow's affection for me reached as high as 90%. But no matter how things went in between, in the end, it was always defeated by that damn male lead Aura, and due to some misunderstanding or scheme, it ended in a bitter divorce. So I couldn't let my guard down. Absolutely not. On the side, Willow saw me staying silent for a long time, looking lost, probably thinking I didn't believe in her resolve. She paused for a moment, as if organizing her words. Just then, her phone suddenly vibrated in her pocket. She took it out, glanced at it, and her eyes lit up. "George, wait here for me. I have something urgent to take care of. I'll be back soon." After saying this, she quickly walked out of the room in her high heels. I watched her figure disappear at the end of the hallway and didn't even bother to guess what she was going to do. Anyway, she could do whatever she liked, as long as it didn't delay my divorce. Bored, I paced around the room, my mind racing as I calculated the feasibility of my next divorce plan. What if I tried cheating? No, too risky. What if Willow, in a fit of frustration, decides to kill me? Then I could pretend to owe a huge gambling debt. That doesn't seem to work either. With her current attitude, she'd probably think, "Hubby's debt is my debt," and silently pay it off of me. Just when I was racking my brain and coming up with nothing, a sarcastic voice suddenly came from behind. Well, if it isn't Vice President Wang. "Why are you alone here?" I turned around, and to my surprise, it was none other than my old assistant, Martin. At this point, most of his injuries had healed, but his left arm was still wrapped in a bandage and in a thick plaster cast. When he saw that I was the only one in the room and remembered that Makoto had been transferred to another hospital, a knowing expression instantly appeared on his face. "So, did Willow kick you out?" TSK. I told you, you couldn't beat Makoto, and you definitely can't beat me. Now you see who the real winner is, don't you? I was at a loss for words when I heard this. I couldn't wait for him to win, for Willow to go straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce, and then for the system to judge that I had failed the conquest and send me straight home. Thinking of this, I quickly nodded and earnestly said, All right, you're great, you're amazing. Now hurry up and get Liu, the CEO, to divorce me. Please. I'm begging you, seriously." Martin's smile instantly froze. He probably didn't expect me to react this way, and his whole face turned sour like a palette of colors. "George, stop being so sarcastic. Do you think just because you have a husband's title, you're something special?" I couldn't help but roll my eyes in my mind. So Martin thought I was mocking him. I'm more wrong than anyone could imagine. Dude, I'm being sincere here. Is there anyone in this world who wants to divorce Willow more than I do? The next moment, Martin seemed to shift his tone, perhaps trying to salvage his pride. George, don't get too smug. Are you wondering why Willow suddenly left? Do you want to know where she went? I immediately perked up, eagerly leaning in and asking, could it be she went to find you? Martin tilted his chin upward, then pointed toward the window outside the hospital room. Pretty much. See that? Although Willow pretended to sever ties with me, even ignoring my messages, it's all for your benefit. Deep down, she still cares for me. That's a love she hides deep within her heart. I followed his finger and looked outside. In the garden below the hospital, Willow was indeed standing there, holding a beautifully packaged jar that looked like some sort of high-end supplement. Martin's smug grin grew wider. Did you see that? She especially had someone airlift that supplement from abroad, several $1,000s a bottle, just to help me recover my health. She doesn't say it, but her actions speak louder than words. George, this is a surprise she has for me. If you don't want to be a third wheel, you should leave now before you end up making yourself sick. I quickly nodded in agreement. Leave. I'm leaving right now. I could hardly wait to sprout wings and fly away, making room for him and Willow. May all lovers in the world find happiness, and may I divorce and return to my own world soon. I turned to leave, careful not to disturb Willow's surprise from Martin. But no sooner had I taken a couple of steps than a cold voice rang out behind me. George, what are you doing here? Willow had caught up with me so quickly. At that moment, Martin snorted coldly, sneering in a tone only the two of us could hear. Did you hear that? Told you not to come. Now you're asking for trouble. Willow really did come looking for me. He straightened his collar, flashed a smile, and then reached out his hand. Willow, it's good you're here. You even bought such expensive. But before Martin could finish his sentence, Willow didn't even spare him a glance. She walked straight past him, came up to me, and without a word shoved a heavy jar of supplements into my hands. Honestly, I told you to wait here, but you just had to run off. I searched for you for so long. Hey, these are the supplements I had a friend specially get for you from abroad to help with your recovery. Make sure you take them twice a day. It'll help your body heal. In an instant, Martin, who had been so smug just a moment ago, was left completely dumbfounded. I was also in shock. I looked down at the valuable jar in my hands, then looked back up at Willow, my face full of questions. Is this for me? Are you sure you didn't give it to the wrong person? Isn't this for Martin? It was then that Willow noticed Martin in the corner. Her gaze instantly turned cold, as if she were looking at some irrelevant piece of trash. Why would I give it to him? That would be a waste of money. She said this without sparing Martin another glance, then turned her attention back to me, her tone softening again. I heard from your neighbor Jong-ma that you were severely injured when you were younger and had major surgery. Your body isn't in the best condition. Of course I need to help you recover. That way, she paused, her ears turning slightly pink, and she stuttered, that way our future children can be healthy and strong. Cough, cough. I immediately choked on my own saliva, my face filled with disbelief. What the hell? Children? Did I hear that right? Seeing my huge reaction, Willow thought I didn't believe her and nodded seriously, adding, yes. If you don't get your body in shape, how are we supposed to have kids in the future? At that moment, I began to suspect whether the system had messed up Willow's character. My God, this plot is derailing so fast it's like a rocket. Just a few days ago, she was practically dying to question me about falsely accusing others, and now she's considering having kids with me. Meanwhile, Martin, hearing Willow talk about having children with me, looked like his face couldn't even be described as just difficult to look at. It was more like the chemical compounds in the Ganges River, twisted and complex. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and muttered a small, angry threat. George, you're deliberately showing off in front of me. Just wait. I won't let this go. After dropping that classic loser declaration, he stormed off down the hallway. I watched his defeated figure retreat, then glanced at the supplements in my hands, feeling a headache coming on. After a while, I looked up at Willow and cautiously asked, about the kids, you're not serious, right? Willow's cheeks were still slightly flushed. She turned her head to avoid my gaze, cleared her throat, and then explained, I just couldn't stand the smug look on his face, so I said that to mess with him. But it's true that I want you to take care of your health. Of course, if you really want a child soon. As soon as I heard this, I quickly cut her off. All right. Let's just go home. I don't want to stay in this hospital for another second. By the time Willow and I returned home, it was already late. After a whole busy day, I was exhausted, both physically and mentally. I couldn't be bothered to argue with Willow anymore. I just wanted to get some sleep. To avoid any further mishaps, I deliberately chose a study, because it only had a small single bed that could accommodate just one person. I had just finished my shower and hurried back to the study to sleep. But as soon as I lay down, there was a knock on the door. My heart skipped a beat, and I pretended not to hear it. The person outside seemed very patient and knocked again 2 more times. I still tried to pretend I hadn't heard. "It's me, George. Are you asleep?" Willow's voice came from outside the door. "Yeah, I'm asleep. Go back to your room," I responded. Just as my words ended, the doorknob began to turn. On the side, Makoto smiled at me with satisfaction, sure that Willow would stop me, scolding my bad actions and taking his side, separating from me. However, Willow only looked at me in silence for a few seconds, then nodded. "All right, I'll do as you wish." Instantly, she turned and said to the nurse who had arrived after hearing the commotion, "Please proceed with Mr. Ito's transfer paperwork right now." As soon as he finished speaking, Makoto was completely stunned. I was also shocked. Makoto wanted to say something more, but Willow directly interrupted him, her tone making it clear she would not accept any argument. "Leave now. If not," she paused for a moment, looked at me, and with a gaze that surprisingly held a hint of tenderness, she added, "My husband will get jealous." Hearing the word husband, I choked on my own saliva and coughed several times. Husband. It was the first time Willow had called me that after all the times we had spent together in the game. In fact, according to the original plot, Willow and I didn't have any real romantic relationship. Although we had married quickly, it all started because I once saved her from an accident, and she happened to need a husband to create a public image for her company in the market of relationships and products for mothers and children. So by coincidence, we ended up getting married. In our daily life, we simply called each other by our names. We had never even addressed each other as husband and wife in public. That's why, even though we were already married, the system still required me to conquer the protagonist. But I didn't expect Willow to now, for the first time, recognize me as her husband. She even preferred to move her crush out of my sight rather than go sign a divorce with me. Could it be that she really has fallen in love with me? But the system hadn't given me any notification that the conquest had been successful. I sighed, thinking how much the plot had deviated, and decided to let her take the reins. Meanwhile, Makoto was completely furious. He pointed at my lips, trembling, but couldn't say a single word. Finally, all he could do was mouth with rage, "Wait, I won't let you go so easily." Soon after, with the nurse's help, he reluctantly left the room. When he left, only Willow and I remained in the room. Willow sighed softly, walked over to me, and lifting her head, asked, "Well, are you satisfied now?" Her voice, though full of tenderness, also carried a hint of resignation. I replied honestly, "I'm not satisfied. If we could go right now to register the divorce, that would be the best." Upon hearing my words, Willow didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled with a mixture of helplessness, took out a handkerchief, and started to wipe the hot soup stains that had splashed on my sleeve. "George, I admit that I didn't do things right before. I didn't have the patience to try to understand your feelings. I was impulsive, harsh, and did many things that hurt you. But from now on, I'll correct my mistakes with actions." She raised her gaze and looked at me seriously, pronouncing each word clearly. "So please don't say any more impulsive things. I'm not going to divorce you." In that moment, looking into her eyes, which were nearly overflowing with tenderness, I was dazed. My heart skipped a beat. But soon I snapped out of it. This kind of smooth start wasn't anything new. It had happened in the previous 9 to 9 attempts. In fact, there were a few times when Willow's affection for me reached as high as 90%. But no matter how things went in between, in the end it was always defeated by that damn male lead aura, and due to some misunderstanding or scheme, It ended in a bitter divorce. So I couldn't let my guard down. Absolutely not. On the side, Willow saw me staying silent for a long time, looking lost, probably thinking I didn't believe in her resolve. She paused for a moment as if organizing her words. Just then, her phone suddenly vibrated in her pocket.